Rebekah Roth here again. I want to share a little story with you. I've released the information that the 4 airplanes had landed at Westover Air Force Base near Chicopee or Springfield, Massachusetts. And about 2015, after March 2015, I did an interview on Coast to Coast. I had several people that were eyewitnesses to the landings come forward and tell me the name of the Air Force Base. That information's been out there now for a decade. And I just received an audio file, and I'm going to play it for you, of a high-ranking United States military officer. I received the audio file, believe it or not, from an American Airlines flight attendant. A very senior one, I might add. So I'm going to play this for you. So while I do that, I think I'll just take you on an airplane ride, and we'll get on. You can watch the wing of the airplane and the sky. Something occasionally I could do if I sat in my jump seat, looked out the window. So I'll let you do that while you listen to this high-ranking military official tell you a story.
The airlines, I could tell you all kinds of things about 9/11. The notion that it was an Arab attack is completely ludicrous. It was a CIA and Mossad operation with some participation in it also by MI6. It had one purpose and one purpose only, which was to make American citizenry angry enough so that the United States would go and spill its blood on behalf of Israel to balkanize as many of the Arab countries surrounding Israel as possible. And that was the whole point of it, that every commercial airline flight has something called a manifest. This is a printout list of who's on the flight. The airlines are very precise about these, and the big airlines like United and American, they maintain these manifests very rigorously from the time that people make reservations to the time when they check in. And when they board the plane, it's all checked against that. And the very last thing that happens before the door is slammed shut on an airplane is that the final version of a flight manifest is printed out and passed into the head flight attendant and say, here's who's on the fucking plane. So you know where they are and who they are. And that is what's locked in stone. Now, after 9/11, there was an initial flurry of claims that there were Arabs on all these flights and that they took them over and crashed them into things. And there were even a few tentative ad hoc flight manifests that were put out, but these weren't the actual final ones from the airlines. Those didn't surface for some years, and they were very tightly kept away from the public eye. They're available now. You could actually hunt them down if you like, and any of your listeners can too, the final official passenger manifests. And guess what you'll find when you look at them? There's not a single Arab on any of them. Not one. Zero. I think you'll find that it's kind of difficult to hijack a plane unless you're on it, right?
Yeah, there is that problem. Yeah, there is that problem. Although, okay. What about the uninterruptible autopilot? That can control the plane.
There is all 4 of those 757s in those days constructed by Boeing had an automatic device which was installed by Boeing, which would permit a controller on the ground to seize control of the airplane, much like the drone systems that we have today, take the control system away from the onboard pilots, and fly and land the plane. And this was originally an anti-hijacking measure, and it was, as I said, put on all of those planes at that time. That's a matter of documentation, which readers can also look up. When that happens, all of the other control systems, such as the ground-to-flight communications from the pilot, are also seized and moved to the person who is on the ground who is controlling these systems. So the pilots become essentially passengers in the cockpit. And this was, again, originally done to prevent airplanes from being hijacked. But what it also does is permit an airplane to be taken over from the ground and flown just like a drone. So this isn't crazy science. It's just a perfectly normal thing, like the Reapers or Predator drones. And in this case, the 4 planes were simply taken over. And to make a long story short, they were all flown to a almost completely disused air base in Massachusetts called Westover Air Base, where they were landed. The base had been cleared of all its residual personnel the day before. The base has large, oversized hangars, big enough to put 757s in, because the base was originally constructed for the C-5A Galaxy, the hugest military transports around. So the 4 planes were flown there. Selected members of the crews from them and selected passengers were then offloaded from the planes and used to make the quote-unquote cell phone calls. Now they could make the cell phone calls because their cell phones would now work, which they wouldn't way up in the air at cruising altitude. And of course, on the ground, there is no background noise from the jets that you would normally hear. If you've ridden on any kind of a commercial jet, you know that it isn't a completely silent environment. There's all the jet noise, that's going on around you. But all those calls are completely silent. And as one very alert flight attendant would later point out, all the protocols, keywords, and code systems that flight crews are normally trained to use in the event of a hijacking were completely disregarded. Then the calls themselves were all within a few moments of each other, which was possible when you brought all the 4 planes down there together. After which, not to put too gentle a point on it, the passengers of those planes, including the ones who made the phone calls, were murdered. And so much for that. The planes themselves were then flown later on down to Florida, where there is a place, a company that converts commercial 757s to commercial industrial versions to haul stuff around, and that was their disposition, basically being cleaned out and reused. That the original planes were.
Well, imagine how vindicated this senior flight attendant feels about right now. I've been attacked by college professors, 9/11 truthers, architects and engineers, you name it. You name it. And quite frankly, I'm just going to let you guys think about what you just heard from a man who served in the U.S. military, intelligence, in psychological operations. I'm just going to suggest you hit that replay button right now and take another flight while you listen to what he says. It's unfortunate that he didn't remember my name because I'm pretty sure I'm that flight attendant he talked about that mentioned the fact, and you've heard it here before, that none of the crew members followed the protocol. Now later on, and maybe he doesn't know this or didn't know this at the time, it looked more like the pilots involved may have been actually more involved, if you get my drift. Not necessarily remote control. That was the opinion of multiple professional pilots that had flown both of those aircraft. The cockpit's exactly identical in the 757 and 767. That's their opinion, not mine. But let's go ahead and hit that replay button. Let's just see what he says.